Welcome to Little Ol' Engine. I'm the mechanic and this is the garage. Today we're going to be working on a Tecumseh 8 horsepower H50 carburetor. I've had this carb part before, but I wanted to show you exactly what it took to go through the thing and refresh it and get it up and running again. Now, this is my ultrasonic cleaner. I've just got really hot water with about 1 drop of dish soap per cup in it. Set that on degauze, supposed to prevent corrosion. We'll start taking this carburetor apart. I was using the gasket just as a dust cover. Collect all our little parts here so we don't lose them. Pull off the air cleaner cover. Little parts. Now, this air cleaner actually looks like it's never been used despite the rust, so we'll reuse that. Pull off the air cleaner base. Little screws. Little screws go right down the carb. Let's see if it wants to fall right through. Nope. Where'd it go? There it is. Oh, there it is. Little screw. Next, we're going to pull off what they call the power screw. This also holds the carb bowl on. Now, a little gasket on there to seal it. Gonna need a screwdriver. Now hold the power screw with my wrench, 7/16. Flat blade screwdriver. We're gonna pull out the main jet. Okay, now the bowl's off. Cleaned it before. I put this little O-ring on here just as again a dust cover, keep stuff out. We're going to replace that with the proper gasket. The float, and I had already pulled out the float needle seat and the float needle. Don't lose that little pin, that's the float pin. We're also going to want to pull out this idle jet. Alright, and that's the main body pretty much apart for a minor rebuild. There is more you can do to it, but not necessary on this carb. Now pull the stuff we don't need to clean out. And we're also going to get these little O-rings off the jets. These are actually new O-rings that I put on there when I had the carb apart before. Those little O-rings are nothing special. They're a standard O-ring you can get at your well-stocked hardware store. Little O-ring. There's also the same O-ring on the idle jet somewhere here. We don't want to put the float in the ultrasonic cleaner when it just floats. It can also damage the solder. Pull the little O-ring off the idle jet. dropped the washer. And we don't need to clean the sealing washer that goes on the bottom of the bowl. Alright, all the little parts into the ultrasonic cleaner. Now if you haven't had the carb part and cleaned it before, you probably want to clean all the gunk off of it before you stick it in the cleaner. It really gets into the little small parts inside. The parts you're going to need to do this, you're going to need a float valve seat and needle kit, and you're also going to need the gaskets, the one that goes between the air filter plate and between the carb and the intake manifold, which on this engine is just a spacer. Very small parts in these bags, especially that bag. Looking at this, I got the gasket for between the spacer and the block. I don't need that. Alright, we took a break here waiting for the sonic cleaner to finish cleaning up. Don't need this on the bench anymore. While we're waiting for the sonic cleaner, let me remind you to please subscribe to the channel and set yourself up for updates so you don't miss any of these cool videos. It's almost done, I swear. Make sure all the parts are here. And there are a couple of very small parts in there. The valve seat itself is tiny. There's an itty bitty little wire that holds the needle. Okay, cleaner's done. Pull the little parts out of here. Now we're going to go ahead and stick the carb body in. I should have got a bigger cleaner. It doesn't quite submerge the carb all the way. So we'll do it as a two-step process. And while that starts ultrasonic cleaning, I'm going to dry off some of these parts here. Nice clean rag. You don't want to get a bunch of gunk on your nice clean parts. And we're going to put the O-ring back on the needle valve. Make sure you didn't lose the little washer that goes between the spring and the O-ring. Tiny little piece. Should be on there. Alright, the other needle jet. And yep, I lost the little washer. Come here. Itty bitty washer. And that goes between the spring and the O-ring. You want these parts nice and clean. New O-ring onto the jet. Just getting everything clean and dry. Most common piece to lose, the float pin. Keep track of that little piece of metal. Alright, we're going to take a break while the ultrasonic cleaner does its thing. The magic of video, it's done. Oh, I missed a couple bolts. I'll dry those off. Alright, flip the carb over so we get both sides of it nice and good and clean in the ultrasonic cleaner. And we're going to take a break while it cleans. I'm going to want those scissors. Magic of video, it's almost done cleaning. Oop, I missed a little screw. Okay, now the carb body has been ultrasonically cleaned. That gets into all the little passages inside there that you can't really get to from the outside. Set that carb out to dry. And let's go ahead and unplug the ultrasonic cleaner. We're done with that. And we'll improve the lighting. I'm going to take a break while that cleans, or dries. Okay, carb body is mostly dry. Now we break out the carb cleaner. What we're going to do is make sure the passages that run through here allow fuel into the venturi are all nice and clean and clear. There's one that's just in the side of the body up in here. Little finagling, and you can get the tube in there. You're going to squirt it in there and make sure it comes out the other side. Clean out the venturi a little bit. And down here we want to clean out the spot for the power screw in the main jet. Tube in the middle. Squirt through there. Make sure it comes out the other side. Want to squirt through where the idle jet goes. Again, just making sure the passages are clear. Comes out the other side. That one should come out the bowl and the venturi. And we got this tube right here, and it's clear, comes out the other side. There's also this little slot here that goes into the chamber where the idle jet is. Clean that out a little bit, and then back flush it through the idle jet. If those passages aren't clear, it won't work right. Now the power screw, you want to make sure the center of it is nice and clear. There's also two tiny holes in the threads. Squirt carb cleaner through there, make sure it comes out the other side. Those are nice and clean. If you need to, run a little piece of wire or something, clear out any obstructions. Blow through it the other way. Nice and clean. some of the excess carb cleaner off. Well, nice and clean. Clean and dry the power jet. I want to make sure that these threads are nice and clean, so work my fingernail in there and spin the screw around and clean the threads very well. And now our kit. Again, very small parts. I don't recommend just ripping these open. Might send stuff flying. This is our bowl gasket. It's going to go right there. Replaces this O-ring I was using for a dust cover. So throw that away. Again, tiny parts. The washer for the bowl. That replaces this old one, so throw that away. Now these two parts I removed from the carb. I'm sorry I didn't show you that. Now the valve seat, there is actually a right side up and an upside down. Can't see it on the camera, but there are two circles on the side that go against the carb, and the side that the needle seats against is pretty much smooth. Now this guy goes in the hole right between the tower and the fuel inlet. Get it seated in there nice and square. And then you're going to want to punch to push it down into the bottom of that tube. You're going to want a bigger punch than that to push that into the bottom of that tube. Bigger punch. And gently push that into the bottom. Make sure it's seated square against there. And it needs to make a seal. If you push too hard, you can damage the rubber though. Seat it in there nice and square. There's our needle and this itty bitty wire. Now the needle hangs on this wire. You kind of see the little clip it goes into. You take the square end, pop it into the clip. Now a lot of people will make the mistake of trying to stick the needle in the hole. Makes sense. That's where it goes. And then trying to finagle that little wire, get the angle of the dangle just right, and hook it on the float while you're trying to get the float seated in place. Don't do this. It's not how you do it. Much easier way. You want to use gravity. Gravity is your friend. You hang the needle on the float. Using gravity, stick the whole assembly together all at once. Needle in the hole. Float aligned with the hinge there. And then you take your little easily lost float pin. Get the angle of the dangle just right, and it will just slide right on in there. There it is, floats hung. Now we want our bowl gasket. This is a square gasket. You do not want to get this gasket twisted. If it's twisted, it's going to leak. So be careful, get it on here. Sometimes fights, but it does fit. And there it is. Popped on on there nice and secure. Double check, not twisted. Okay, now we can put the bowl on. Bowl sets on just like that. And our power screw holds the bowl on. Don't forget your little felt washer there, the fiber washer, I guess. Got to seal the bottom of the bowl. Start everything by hand. That's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. Start everything by hand. Will save you from cross-threading. Trusty 7/16 wrench. You don't want to get this too tight, but you want it tight enough to compress that rubber seal a little bit and compress the fiber gasket just a little bit. You can break stuff tightening that too tight. Okay, in goes the main jet. Right in the bottom. Again, start it by hand. We're going to tighten this main jet all the way down. Again, do not over tighten just until you feel it bottom out. We're going to loosen it again. One turn. I'm up at about 4,000 feet, and that seems to work pretty good. Here, you may need it out further if you're at lower elevations. Start the idle jet. Start it by hand because sometimes there's an issue, like the O-ring isn't all the way on. Could have gotten caught in the threads and torn up the O-ring. Let's start it by hand. Now it goes in nice and smooth. Tighten this jet again all the way down, but don't force it. You just want to screw it in until it seats. Again, at 4,000 foot elevation, I turn these out 1 1/4 turn. And that usually works on these Tecumseh carbs for this elevation. If you're a lower elevation, you might want that out a little bit further. In this gasket, we have a new one. Throw the old one away. In this gasket, we have a new one. I'm in the desert. These gaskets, they usually just dry up and pop right off. They can be a challenge to get off sometimes, but this one's being cooperative. Grab a little wire brush here. And clean that up. Get any gasket material that was still stuck on there off. Make it so you can get a good nice seal again. Here's our gasket. Not the best scissors. I like to keep all the trash off my workbench, keep it clean. Sometimes I'm better at it than others. Alright, there's a gasket. Now we're going to mount this on this air cleaner base on the carburetor. Now at this point you may have forgotten which side it goes on. It seems like it could fit on either side. It goes on the side with the choke. The choke is before the throttle. So, that side. Now a lot of people will try and get this all to line up here. Carefully place the gasket. carefully place the plate, and then try and get their screws lined up in the hole. Again, this is the hard way. Easy way. Use the screws to hold your gasket. Much easier. Line the plate up, and away you go. That is, if you didn't use the wrong screws. Make sure this is the right screw here. Yeah, that's the right screw. That's the wrong screw. That screw. Alright, start everything by hand. And get this air cleaner plate screwed on here nice and tight. That is the gasket that goes between the carburetor, and on this engine the intake manifold is just a spacer plate, but it's the carb to intake manifold gasket. That fits perfect right there. Those are the screws that are going to hold it in place. Alright, that is ready to go back on the machine. We've got a couple of extra screws left. Those are to hold the air cleaner cover on. It's easier to install the carburetor with that off, so we'll set those aside. And this carb's ready to go.